The Wrestling is Real podcast because wrestling needs us. Brought to you by kingofamazon.com. Go to kingofamazon.com when you do your shopping for Amazon to help the King of Podcasts. Shop for Amazon at kingofamazon.com.
Bruce Prichard. Yes, this is who we're resorted to is Bruce Prichard. He's back, and he's back in charge of creative. And he has been in charge of creative before. And do we all like the fact that this is happening? No, not at all. See, with the fact that it only took really took a year for the whole Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff executive director deal was going to go away. Yeah, that was going to happen. But in a matter of a year and 4 months, Bruce Prichard, who was gone for a long time from this company, is back on board. A revolving door. And the circle continues and people keep coming back. But again, that's what we have right now. The revolving door shows that we have people that are getting brought on now to go ahead and come back and help this company. There are no part-time players now to help out this brand. The usual excuse for WWE to go ahead and try to keep things up. We don't have that now. We are bringing people back. We don't have a John Cena to pull out and join in the fun. We don't have, Tyson Fury. We don't have Rob Gronkowski. We don't have Cain Velasquez. All these other names that we had that were all across the board to come help assist and try to get something going with the brands. Trying to get WWE back up somewhere. Well, that didn't happen, as we know. So where are we at with things? Well, let's talk about it. Now, listen, there's not a question that Bruce Prichard has the experience. And no question that being within the confines of WWE or WWF and working alongside Vince McMahon for many years, Bruce Prichard, I would imagine, has about as much clout that Pat Patterson had back in the day. And I really feel like Vince McMahon wants to have that one person that can actually help to assist in everything that's going on. Because what it comes down to is Triple H is left to NXT. Stephanie and Shane are not even in the picture right now. Stephanie is handling content, and she does other things in a different outreach for the company from the charity end. And as for Shane has been out of the picture. It's like he's back working on Chinese cable companies again. I don't know. But when he went away, he went away. I'm not asking him for him to come back. Because all those ideas didn't work necessarily. You might have had a little bit of a bump. You might have had a few things that might have kept things interesting. But do you want to take some of the blame of all this? The fact that we don't have a crowd to work with? Is that the real problem? Is it the fact that people are just more occupied? I mean, I actually thought the ratings would go up a bit because we still don't have sports. Not anything to the point where we have sports surrounding us to where we are like totally engaged with it. I mean, we still have another month or so. Like I said, another 6 weeks? Most likely before the NBA actually comes back with some kind of a pseudo return of the season so they can finish things up and give us playoffs and a championship. We don't know about Major League Baseball. The NFL, they're hopefully going to start getting things going, but we have to see where they are coming up in August to really know. I know there's been practices, but will they get to actual games? That's the question. There's all that. Your everyday sports that would usually consume what's going on right now with WWE, it's not really there. SmackDown, again, holding about 2 million viewers. Raw did get about 1.9 million viewers average for this week. So that's a bit of a help. But regardless, I mean, you did have to put out Randy Orton and Edge to start things off. Bringing in Christian and teased the hell out of getting Christian on board to be a part in an actual possible unsanctioned match, which we heard all of that right there. Well, that said, all this going on, they're doing things. They're trying to be active here. They're trying to do something to bring people together. But there's a lot that's there. When you look at the return of certain people that keep coming back. Okay? People keep coming back. And that's what goes on. And the problem is we don't have any new faces or voices or visionaries that are here to go ahead and change the wrestling world. I mean, if there are, we have former head writers. We have, other people that have been booking and things like that. I mean, at the moment, the newest version, the newest incarnation of a wrestling promotion is AEW, All Elite Wrestling, which is being done by a committee of veteran wrestlers with some kind of an equal share committee type of deal, like a bunch of aldermen with a mayor. I don't even know if it's that, but you have management, and then you have some way, some shape, some form of putting something together and automatically getting on the map as a company. So they've done that. They've accomplished that. Now, they have not made growth, but and again, AEW has not grown past what they started off with. Like, the initial start was good. At the moment, they're still trying to find their way to build an audience. Taking some time. Now, with that said, with Bruce Prichard coming on board, this is where Vince Russo, I hate to tell you, is absolutely right once again. Why is it that Jim Cornette keeps finding his way back on board? And why is it that a Bruce Prichard can still find his way somewhere, or Jim Ross for that matter? Take a look. You have a lot of people that are managing companies that have been around for a long time that were very successful, or they did find some success while working in the Attitude Era. Everybody that was part of the Attitude Era in some way, shape, or form have continued to work somewhere. When they were working into the storylines or the booking of a particular promotion, they are out there. But there are some that are not there anymore because that's what's going on. Because, not Bill Watts. We're not seeing him back out there anymore. Among others. But what happens is, when you have a Vince McMahon on board, Vince McMahon is not the kind of person that wants to go ahead and he's privy for bringing in new talent. It's been obvious he's been very reluctant to really do something to get engagement, to get somebody he will go and engage with and give autonomy, give them the ball to run with it. And there's very few. At this point, we've had Paul Heyman several times. The visionary of ECW. I mean, listen, even I am going to say I did enjoy having Paul Heyman try to do something to help the brand of WWE. But if it went anywhere else, it would be the same thing. He is making the attempts he would normally do. And I thought some of the things he tried to do, if they could have been panned out, might have been well intended and might have done well. The Lana Rusev wedding angle with Lashley involved. The Mike and Maria Kanellis angle. Trying to bring in new stars like Humberto Carrillo and Andrade into the mix on Raw, and Angel Garza and Seth Rollins, changing him, turning him heel, making him the Monday Night Messiah. Like, there's a lot of things that were done here. It's not as if they didn't try to do certain things. Drew McIntyre, obviously during this time, under Paul Heyman, did get himself to a championship level because he turned main event thanks to Paul Heyman, I would imagine. But that's everything that we have going on. So everything we're going to see now with WWE programming will be under the byproduct of Bruce Prichard. I'm going to touch on this a little bit more, but I want to hold off real quick here and get into some stories, because now I need to tie in what actually happened this week, because now we're getting a little bit of a break. So, a real reaction by WWE because of the fact that they've been running tapings, and a lot of people are still scared of COVID-19. The fearmongers, and I'm listen, there are fearmongers in the wrestling media. Even in the wrestling media, there are those people that honestly believe that COVID-19 is such a major threat right now. When we see therapeutics that are being developed, when we're getting more testing than there ever was before, when we're possibly going to see a vaccine being used for treatment by the end of the year, all the effort being done, and the fact that we're not going to see another economic shutdown. We're not going to see people get shut down and have to be stuck indoors once again, stay in place. It's not happening again. Probably will never happen again, to be honest with you. Because we see what it did. We see how many people got affected. We see how many companies got affected. We see how America got affected as a whole. And the fact that we are vulnerable as a country also contributes to why we are where we are now. But again, any kind of shock, anything they can say, because WWE wanted to stay the course. They wanted to keep the effort as much as they could to keep putting on programming. They did not want to stop for any reason. They didn't want to hold things down. They wanted to keep going. So they did. And now it's being said, well, we did hear that was an employee in Orlando that actually had tested positive. Well, now we're hearing a wrestler has tested positive. So reporting from Orlando Weekly, I'm going to take the story from them as opposed to anybody else. WWE provided Orlando Weekly with a statement on a story regarding masks and audience rules at their tapings. They reported that fans have not been in attendance at WWE events since March 13th. And on Monday's tapings, this past Monday, a select number of friends and family were permitted to attend tapings and TV production. The individuals were required to participate in medical screenings prior to entering the closed set at our training facility and were kept apart from in-ring performers and production personnel. Attendance was below 20% capacity and social distancing guidelines were adhered with at least 6 feet between parties, thus face masks were not required. Now, Orlando Weekly wants to go ahead and fearmonger. Here's what they say. And another sign that professional and collegiate, while we're at it, sports are resuming too quickly. A WWE performer, which they don't mention as a developmental talent, although they did say part of the developmental talent roster has tested positive for COVID-19. The results led the company to suspend their Tuesday scheduled tapings at the Performance Center. And while wrestlers and developmental talent and all production employees got tested. The wrestler has been unnamed. And this wrestler was last present on June 9th at the Performance Center. Now, they have been used as audience members during recent tapings of Raw and Smackdown. And they wrestled for NXT tapings. So the news broke around the same time that WWE issued an edict banning face masks at tapings for wrestlers and production staff. According to Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Newsletter, they were telling employees that if you want to wear a mask, just stay at home. And Brian Alvarez, who works with Dave Meltzer, confirmed it on Twitter. And according to Forbes, I forget if it was Alfred Kanuer or Blake Ostreicher, they said there were even a limited number, quote, of fans that allow in the audience at the taping for Monday Night Raw, right after the news broke on social media about the positive test after Raw aired. So the talent found out about this late Monday night the same way all of us did through the internet. As we mentioned earlier, a non-wrestling employee did test positive in late March. It's the first time one of the wrestlers tested positive. Governor Ron DeSantis gave WWE Essential Business the green light to continue to hold their TV tapings as far back as April. Now, Orlando Weekly wants to try to say it's because of Linda McMahon and the America First PAC. All right, fine. Got it. So this happened. Everybody's being tested. And for whatever reason, out of anger or vitriol towards WWE, they're going to go ahead and try to say, well, no, we don't want wrestling. Whichever bodies are out there that want to go and say, listen, we need to shut down wrestling now. No. So obvious. I get it. Don't want to put themselves out there and try to say, hey, we shouldn't have this happen. Got it. And they want to go ahead and create some big ruckus. Well, I don't know why everyone wants to go ahead and pile on to WWE. I mean, they're worried about the wrestlers and the talent. Well, as far as I thought they were still being asked, like, if they didn't want to go ahead and show up, they don't have to. As far as I'm concerned, we don't see Roman Reigns, right? Is he back? Have we seen Brock Lesnar? No. And regardless if you're telling me, we're not going to be using him. No. And Bray Wyatt's not there. And, there might be maternity leaves for Reigns and Wyatt. But are you telling me that the company tried to not bring him back if they wanted to be real jerks? If some of the other stars didn't want to come back right now and work, I mean, there's that as well. But again, these wrestlers need to go and be able to make money. They're independent contractors. So who's helping who right here? At this point, one wrestler testing positive. They did not die, as far as I'm concerned. As far as I know, I'm guessing this particular wrestler has now been put in quarantine. Everybody's being tested. And if everybody's being tested within the last week, are you telling me they're not going to find out if they're positive or not? And there are therapeutics out there if somebody needs to go and take these, right? And most of these people are in quite good shape. And they're tested anyway, right? I mean, again, the discussion about this is what it is. Everybody's all upset. I got it. So everybody's all upset and really trying to bring us up and just create a big story about it. And that's where we are. So everybody's going to be upset about that. And that puts a big wrinkle, a big monkey wrench into things. I don't know what that means for the SmackDown tapings coming up. I don't know. I do know NXT. And by the way, there is a story right now that Kevin Owens is now out of the Raw tapings. He doesn't want to be around this because of the COVID-19 scare. Again, it's becoming a scare. So Fightful.com reports that because of the fact that the person who was not at the tapings, that one of the people that was not at the tapings on Monday night was Kevin Owens. He made a decision to not show up after hearing about the developmental wrestler who recently tested positive for COVID-19. And that WWE has also stated that wrestlers who do not feel comfortable performing are fine to go home and there will be no repercussions. So now Raw was actually taped earlier today, so we'll have something for Monday. SmackDown tapings were planned, have been moved to June 26th, and they will do a live-to-tape show on that evening. So I don't know what that means for this week's show. I guess they did do a show this week. I'm not sure. But that's where we are. Look, nobody likes any of this. And listen, everybody's politics is getting aside as well. Kevin Owens has already gone ahead and made his politics known. And so have others. Which is too bad that we're hearing performers actually go ahead and put their politics out there. But, hey, it's what they want to do. My whole thing is following backlash. There was an attempt that made by the company to kind of do some things and, try to make things good. Like they did follow along with the Akira Tozawa angle and trying to get out there and do something more with them. And we're learning a lot more. Listen, Edge now, he's gone for surgery for his triceps. after the greatest wrestling match ever, they brought Christian into the mix. What will happen with him? Will Randy Orton and Christian be a buffer right now until then? We don't know. But we'll find out all about that soon. Now back to Bruce Prichard. Because, I mean, regardless of what's going on here, the issue still comes down to the fact of seeing what happens now with the company and all the issues that are going on with this when it comes to trying to create some kind of compelling content. Dealing with the issues of wrestlers not feeling good being over there because of the fear-mongering of the media, whether it's wrestling media or national mainstream corporate media, the scare's out there. Now, justified for those, obviously, if you have families, and justified in general, but seriously, the kind of scare that some people are being put as a result of this is crazy. Just saying. And there's reaction to it. As I said, we've always known what Vince Russo knew about this when he heard about it. So let's talk about what Vince Russo has said about this. Bruce Prichard, as Russo was making a point about it, he wrote on Twitter, and let me do the Vince Russo voice. There was one to be they eventually eat each other. I told you that months ago, and then there was one to be continued. So he's been saying for months on his podcast that the situation with Paul Heyman and Bruce Prichard wouldn't work out due to what he describes as Prichard's two-faced personality. There's also been a lot of speculation about Russo once again secretly booking for Impact Wrestling. But that's not happening. And there's been always a history with Bruce Prichard and Vince Russo. And honestly, Bruce Prichard has actually been pretty honest about what he has said. And I honestly do believe Vince Russo more and more every day about what he has said. They definitely don't like each other. They've definitely had issues with each other. So let's talk about it. Story from Simon Boehm, a comic book. He says that the huge change to Raw's creative team isn't necessarily a bad thing. Let's go ahead and talk about this. He says that with Bruce Prichard back in charge of both brands, we might start seeing consistency. Okay. So in this story, Paul, much like his successor Bruce Prichard, is an ideas guy. Bruce Prichard is like Paul Heyman in the sense that he famously came up with the idea for The Undertaker's brother. According to Jim Cornette, the only fixed idea Bruce had for the gimmick was the name Kane. It was the entire creative team at the time consisting of Bruce, Vince, Pat Patterson, Vince Russo, and Jim Cornette that had come up with the rest of the backstory. While ECW's best angles and feuds were phenomenal, a large portion of angles and storylines were never thought all the way through or were booked on the fly. Like Pritchard, Heyman has ideas. Many of them are great, but sometimes they need somebody to help him shape those ideas and fill out the blanks. Bruce's significant advantage compared to Heyman is that he understands what Vince wants and how he wants it done. Reputation for being a yes man. And he might be. Still, there's no question that Bruce, for almost 40 years, has gotten to know Vince's likes and dislikes, and is closer in wrestling philosophy to Vince's taste than anybody else. And for as long as Vince is going to be around, then that's what you need. But with no new ideas coming in, what kind of ideas can Bruce Prichard bring to us? As we've heard from Vince Russo and others, that's someone that brought in Mantar and Teal Hopper and other, and in the, all the gobbledygooker and other characters like this came when Bruce Prichard was in a prominent role in creative for WWE before Vince Russo came in and started making significant changes with Ed Ferrara. So he says the most important reason for this change that would be good is coherence and consistency. Now, according to the story, they say that Raw was filled with stop and start pushes throughout Heyman's run because Vince, in the end, didn't agree with the direction. Well, that's what creative has a problem with anyway. It doesn't matter who it is. Vince will always do this. SmackDown, on the other hand, has been a lot more consistent during Pritchard's time because he knows what Vince wants and books accordingly. Heyman thinks about his audience, and while that is generally good, it's not ultimately his job, it's Vince's. With Vince at the helm of both shows, Raw and SmackDown will differ greatly from each other. Will never differ greatly from each other, but how could they? They're running through the same filter. With one creative team in charge of both shows, chance for consistency is much higher. So, basic byproduct of Bruce Prichard equals consistency, doesn't equal ratings, doesn't equal people coming back to the dance. Selecting Bruce as the idea mind, quote, creates a smoother process and a more consistent product because Vince has less to change and reshape. And wait for the stories we hear that Vince rewrote the whole show. I'm waiting for that. To be clear, this does not mean that WWE product will change in terms of content. It won't become better, whatever better means for each fan. It just means we can expect more consistency across the main roster and the storylines. If that's indeed the case, it's a step in the right direction. Again, this is why the bubble, the casual fans, why do you accept mediocre all the time? Why do we accept a couple of main eventers that are finally getting the kind of push, and then the mid-card is completely just a throwaway? To be honest with you. Do they really do a good job of building mid-card stars to build them up to something bigger? Have they done that lately? Ask yourselves that. I mean, do you really think about it? Look where we are. It's the same thing over and over. Again, it's not a step in the right direction. It's just a step back to putting things where they are. Again, for this whole thing to change, for the constant issues with creative and people leaving and coming and going, the constant revolving door, and the fact that we have these older minds that come in that Vince has trust in, and not always having trust in, because again, Paul Heyman has been in and out of this company. Bruce Prichard has also been in and out of this company. Remember, he came in 87. Brother Love, so he was an on-air character. Also did color commentary. And then he managed The Undertaker, one of the early ones. And then the issue of him playing Brother Love and the whole televangelist stuff in the late 80s, all that stuff. Which I'm surprised Kenneth Copeland has still survived this all to this day. Without a scratch. And then only for a short time would he come back to the company. And stay around till 2008. And then he go to TNA. And then he spent a little bit of time in Major League Wrestling. And he came back October 15, 2019. Actually, he was already on staff on February 23rd of last year. And then October 15th, he took over for Eric Bischoff in a very short stint as the executive director. And here we are. We're on the same spot as over and over. Now, again, Bruce Prichard, it's not that he can't help things out and try to get things going forward. No, he's doing that. I mean, he gets things, everything's kind of back where Vince wants it to be. But again, following along Vince's direction, as long as he's there, is it going to stay in any better direction? And can we also mention the business? I mean, look at all the money they are making with the product. That they got to be able to go ahead and keep things at a certain pace. They need to be able to keep a certain level, a ceiling, where their ratings need to stay consistent. And they're struggling. To try to keep 2 million viewers on a regular basis has been tough. Now they did it this week on both of their brands. The NXT brand has they took the risk, threw it out for slaughter as a sacrifice to the AEW brand and the Wednesday Night Wars. As far as I'm concerned, 8 weeks later, 8 weeks ago, AEW started consistently winning each and every week. There is a streak, and nobody's talking about it. And you got to ask yourself: is there anything right now with WWE uncontested? You know, they're putting in 2 million viewers now on both of their brands. That is the ultimate barrier of their base audience. Once the crowds start coming back, we could see a bit of a bump. But again, just to get things back to 2.5 million viewers is not the best that can be done. I mean, at least when you're looking at SmackDown on Fox, it's got to be doing better. When I look at the ratings just for June 12th, this past Friday night, and you look what was on, you know, they're not pulling in for full viewers on SmackDown. 2.065. Reruns. Many reruns were able to win the night overall. And the other thing, too, is that with SmackDown, I mean, it is pulling better ratings for adults 18 to 34, yes. Better for adults 18 to 49, and yes, adults 25 to 54. They're doing well, men to 18 to 49. Great. So they're getting some stars. They're getting the younger audience. That's what they're trying to get. So they're able to go and get that, and they're getting the 18 to 49 demos. They're getting it at the top. Adults 18 to 49. And they're winning the night, adults 18 to 34. So that's good. But again, that lower number of all persons watching. I mean, maybe there's just a lot of older people, and that's just what they're going to expect, just to be able to get maybe about 2.5 million viewers. So Fox will go ahead and take the fact that it's a live program they're mostly getting, and, well, this was taped, so I'll give it that. But again, there's nothing that's live that makes it spontaneous or an interest that you have to watch it live. No. And I don't know what their audience looks like, and they go on demand after that. But that audience doesn't change much. Could it be up to 2.5 million? Possibly. But no matter what, the changes they make are still not enough. You're not doing enough yet to continue to go ahead and get back in the right direction, as that writer wrote. It's not in the right direction. It's, again, it doesn't matter who you put there. Heyman, Bischoff, Pritchard. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you put on board to do wrestling. What they are doing that is working, and I think does build some interest in what they're doing, is what they've been doing with the cinematic stuff, which they know they can't do that all the time, but they can work on that and build off of it. Because look, the Viking Raiders, Street Profit stuff has been effective for a mid-card. The Otis, Mandy Rose stuff has been effective for the mid-card. And then your main event storylines, when you did what you did with the greatest wrestling match ever, and then you see what you're doing with everything else. I mean, you know, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, building that storyline up. That's what you got. It's working. But there's not any star power right now. But the thing is, they have to be able to build star power. I don't know who that's going to be. This is where they are. So again, it's basic booking, a byproduct of Bruce Prichard going forward. I'm not necessarily happy about it, but it's where they are. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I don't have much more to say about it. Meantime, I hope you got a chance to listen to my post show for Backlash, which I put up right here at WrestlingIsReal.com. Take a look for it there, and wherever you find your podcast. And until next week, we'll come back for another show. Start leading up to Fyter Fest coming up over 2 weeks, July 1st and 8th. And we'll just kind of run through the gamut. We'll come back with another podcast next week because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast, brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. For more information on how to subscribe to the show, how to share the Wrestling is Real podcast to listeners like you, and check out the latest wrestling headlines, go to WrestlingIsReal.com. That's WrestlingIsReal.com.